And we are recording. Sathvik, welcome to the Honey Badger Diaries.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
You're the co-founder and CEO of Unocoin. Where are you based? Which city do you live in?
So I live in a city called Bangalore in India. So actually my town is about 1 hour drive from Bangalore, but our corporate office is in Bangalore and we work out of Bangalore.
Right. How many people live in Bangalore?
So right now our team size is about 20 of them.
No, I mean how many people live in the city?
How many people live in the city? Okay, so probably about 20 million, I guess.
20 million.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's a very different order of magnitude than what I'm
of
used to
course,
over
yes.
here. 20 million people in one city. So
That's right.
how's India dealing a city like that? How is that dealing with the coronavirus right now? Is it in
So I would
lockdown?
say, I think, see, the state where Bangalore is there, it's called Karnataka. And Karnataka is one of the less affected states. So in the entire Karnataka, we have just about 600 identified cases so far, out of which about 100 or so are coming from Bangalore. So it's kind of manageable. It is not like sealed down where no one is ever allowed to go out.
Hmm.
So for the essential services, people are allowed to go out in the mornings for a couple of hours. And then whatever medical emergencies and such things are fine as well. But it's still not open for any kind of commuting to the office and such things.
Hmm.
So while the central government initially said that from April 20th onwards, it is a discretion of the state government to allow commuting within the city for work, but the politicians or the government within Karnataka said they still don't want to allow that because they don't want the numbers to start increasing.
Hmm.
So due to which, so the commuting is not there. But on the other side, today is already like May 1st, right? So from May 3rd onwards, it is quite, I'm hearing a lot that commuting should be made available because the particular lockdown, initially it was till about April 15th or so, and then it got extended for another 15 days. But I think if this lockdown do not get extended, I think some commuting may start by next Monday, upcoming Monday.
Yeah. So you are in lockdown yourself as well? Well, not quite, but you're at home. You're working from home.
Yeah, for the entire company, for everyone, it has been the case. So everyone is kind of well acquainted to work at home, and this hasn't really decreased the productivity as such. There was little frictions initially, but those were quite easily sorted out because we are a completely online company. It makes not too much of difficulty to just work from home. Yeah.
Right. How's the economy in India dealing with the lockdown situation? Is it managing? I've seen some videos on social media of food
Mhm.
shortages here and there, or I'm not sure what I was looking at or how reliable it was. Can you tell me something about that?
Yeah. So the economy obviously it has got affected. So if I'm talking about the equity markets and such, it kind of follow very similar pattern to to the global markets and gold prices, which is, I mean, in India people are fond of gold and they buy gold and keep it in their houses, home, and wear jewels made of gold, etc. Right. So the prices of gold has gone up, but one of the reasons why it has gone up again is the exchange rate between American dollars to Indian rupees. So it is now closer to about 76 rupees or so, for one American dollar. And when I started Unocoin, it was about 40, 42. So it's kind of like doubled up within this last 6, 7 years. But on the other side, economy-wise, because the commuting is completely zero and people are absolutely not traveling, uh, so it's like most of the businesses don't open the shop, and it is like suffering. But just the ones whoever are catering for the, I mean, it's like if it's related to food and the pharma industry are the ones which are kind of allowed to allowed to do their business right now. And
Yep.
for them, at least, the economy is comparatively less affected. And there are more and more people who are buying the daily ingredients, right? So due to which it is not like shortage, but there is good amount of transactions in these industries right now. But that's pretty much it. All other industries are very dead.
Right. Are there big difference within India, because India is a huge country, of course? So, like, are the rules sort of similar everywhere, or are there big differences per province? Or
Mhm. Okay, so if we're talking about the disparity between how much people earn, or what exactly do you mean?
no, I mean, for example, outbreaks of corona and the lockdown rules. Is this similar throughout the country? I especially asked about the lockdown rules.
The lockdown rules here, like I said, only in the morning, some 2-3 hours is allowed, where people, which means again 1 person from the entire home can go out and get any essentials required. And in all the places, there is like distancing strictly enforced. So even if they are standing out or outside of a mall, I mean outside of a particular supermarket, right? So then they are forced to stand in a distance irrespective of the length of the queue. I mean,
This is the same all across India.
it is more or less same all across India. So this is the kind of thing that these supermarkets already have to follow. If not, then they are not allowed to operate.
Right.
So within supermarket as well, they only are allowing a limited amount of customers. So only after one customer comes back, a new customer is allowed inside. So within the supermarket as well, it's like in a particular aisle, probably one or two guys will be there. So that's a kind of norm that the supermarkets is trying to follow.
Right. So
But sorry.
you mentioned that in your area there aren't that many cases. What about in other parts of India? Are there any large outbreaks anywhere?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely would not say it is in the similar proportion to United States or European countries like Germany and Italy. So probably we are at 1/10 as compared to how it is, spreading there for the population that we have here. So that's what it looks like. But the cities like Mumbai, which is like very very densely, it's about 5,000 cases identified or something like that, right? So it's really huge, and there are so many places which are kind of sealed down. So after lockdown, if it is still serious, they go to another step called seal down, where people are not even allowed to step outside the home, no matter what. And the vegetables and food are served to the doorstep. Some of them are free, and some of them, people have to pay and buy it. And people are allowed to just go out to receive these things, and that's pretty much it. So no matter what, you're not supposed to, go outside. And this is a kind of situation where so wherever the identified cases are there, so there is about 200 meters or so radius, right? So it is like sealed down, is what we call. But rest of the places, it is just like lockdown, where it is not so strict, but people are allowed to go around for basic things, but nothing more than that.
Right. Are you concerned about a big outbreak in India? It's a very crowded country, I've heard. Very hard to keep a distance, maybe in some areas.
Definitely, yes. So we have a lot of slum areas where within about say some 5 square meters of area, there are 10 people living, right? So that kind of areas exist as well, especially in cities like Mumbai. So there, whenever the outbreak happens, we haven't really seen that really must outbreak. But if it happens, it will become almost impossible to control. And the number of people who live in such kind of areas, as in the entire area, are like few hundreds of thousands, right? So, and within a few square kilometers, few hundreds of thousands of people are there living in small rooms and dormitories or something like that, right? So it becomes really tough. And again, they would also go for a seal down. But luckily, I think I keep hearing on different like theories why India is not getting affected so much. One being one of the vaccines that is kind of mandatory in India, that people will take when they are children, when they
Hmm.
are like kids. Okay, so that when whichever countries where that particular vaccine is mandatory, kind of getting affected less, is what I keep on hearing about.
Interesting.
So yeah, it's kind of, it has given some kind of immunity to people. So even though they are getting in contact or this with another infected person, they are just not like picking up the disease,
Mm,
right? So it's kind of immune. But the biggest question is, people don't know who are immune and who are not, so which makes everyone to stay at home.
yeah, right. You mentioned Indians like gold. What about
Yeah.
Bitcoin?
So Bitcoin, we say it's digital gold here in India. So so there is some statistics which says the amount of gold that is held by the Indian woman is more than US Treasury or something like that. So I don't remember the exact statistics. So that is a kind of right. So the Indian women like few things which are not so same as the rest of the world. So one of that is like gold ornaments, right? There's some expensive outfits like saris, right? So those two are the ones which always the Indian girl would go behind, right? So the price of gold, which used to be about 3,000 rupees per gram about 2 to 3 years ago, and now we're talking about 5,000 rupees per gram, which means as per the Indian currency, right? So it has gone up by about 66%. Some of that particular increase is also because the price of or the conversion from Indian rupee to uh, American dollar, right? So that itself has gone worse to some extent. So that is adding up, but yeah, the gold itself has kind of gone ahead. So that's where people see that as one of the best sources or one of the best methods to preserve their wealth is to buy gold ornaments. And the worst you could lose is maybe the making charges, which could be like 10% of the money, but anything else has more
Yeah.
risk.
Well, you cannot make Bitcoin ornaments. So are people still getting into Bitcoin, or do
Um,
you stick to gold?
Yeah, see the women, no matter what you do, it is still gold for them because it's like ornaments. But I think it is not just women, right? So so if you see the average age of an Indian today, it is something like 29 to 30 years. So which means India is comparatively a very young country.
Mhm.
Okay, so and it is also called Silicon Valley of the East. So some Bangalore and a few of the metropolitan cities are quite tech savvy on one side, and they understand the volatility in the speculative markets. So they understand what they're trying to do, right? So and there are platforms here like Unocoin, which are providing the required uh, aids at which the customers in India can very easily buy and sell Bitcoin, including say instant deposit of Indian rupees to instant withdrawals, loan it could be. So whatever are the products which are available outside for crypto markets, more or less all of them are already available here. So
Right.
which makes this particular market very attractive to Indians. And India is one of the biggest inward remitters, right? So about 10% of the entire remittances that happen in the world come to India. So, and these kinds of cryptocurrencies are actually one of the best methodologies that people could use. But right now, it is kind of unregulated, as in people don't understand whether it's right to do or whether it's restricted to do. So, unless the kind of categorization comes up, but this is one of the best methods to save transaction fees and save time and reduce friction, etc. Right? So it significantly is a very very good country for. So it has all the say deficiencies that the country should have for something like Bitcoin to flourish, I think.
Yeah. So do you see it's growing? Is it taken off?
It was kind of going quite good till 2018 first quarter. Will be just after that, the Reserve Bank of India, which is the central bank here, came up with a notice to the banks saying that the bank should stop providing the services, I mean, bank account services to the exchanges and customers of the exchanges
Yes,
who are.
this is getting into the legal battle. So let's get into that. When is this? When did this start? When did the central bank? Because that's what happened. The central bank stepped in at one point in India and told
Mhm.
banks that they couldn't offer services to Bitcoin companies. Correct? When did this happen?
That's right. Yeah. So we started our company in 2013, right? So we did launch our platform Unocoin in a conference called Global Bitcoin Conference, where apart from just the attendees, we also had various regulators and enforcers coming into our conference because we invited them.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we also had the presence from Reserve Bank of India. Then we had CBI, which is like your FBI equivalent, right? So then so crime branch investigation people and many such different, and SEBI as well. So which is like who regulate the securities and the commodities. So we had very good representation from various regulators, and just after that, the
You
Reserve Bank
invited
of
you invited all of the regulators into the conversation about Bitcoin right at the start, right when you founded your company, right when you were hosting meetups. You told all these people, "Come, we'll teach you about this. We'll explain what this is. Come, discuss this with us."
Sure. So that's right. So yeah, so just after the conference, after about a week, the Reserve Bank of India came out with a notice saying that look, we know it exists, right? So they have to acknowledge it exists, and there are security risks because people could just lose the cryptocurrency because of security flaws,
Mhm.
and there is volatility risk, which means the money that you invest, so no one is obligated to buy and such things. So do it at your own risk. So that is a kind of more or less the message that Reserve Bank of India gave
That's
in
fair, right?
2008.
I would consider that a fair warning. You know, Bitcoin is volatile. You can lose your keys. It's a warning
Yeah,
for people to be careful if you want to invest in this, which seems fair.
yeah, yeah. And that is the same warnings that we give to our customers as well. And it is the same warning that is given by all kind of speculative markets anyway. So more or less, like you could lose if you don't act properly, right? So after 2013, they reiterated the same notice again in 2016 and 17. But in 2018, by April 5th, they came out with a notice. I mean, that's like after the booming market, like we saw $20,000, and then it was back at around 15% or so. So that is when the notice from Reserve Bank of India has come up to the banks, saying the bank should stop supporting their services to the businesses like us, like exchanges, and also to the customers whoever are trying to deal with cryptocurrencies. So
Also,
how the notice that
even customers that wanted to buy Bitcoin, just individuals, they had their bank accounts closed if they were dealing in Bitcoin, if they were buying Bitcoin.
if the bank gets to know about that, yes, they will close it.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, so that made even peer to peer to be against the particular notice,
Right.
right? So and then there were some balances that the customers have already kept with the exchange, so that continued to be there and there are some very limited amount of transactions happening between say when one is trying to buy and one is trying to sell using the same balances that exist on the platform, and people could not withdraw it because the bank account support was not there for people to get that particular money.
Right.
So
Well,
there is a
they couldn't withdraw the fiat, the rupees, but they could withdraw the Bitcoin, I guess.
That's right. Yeah.
Right.
So that made it very it's like not all lucrative for anyone to get into this particular space, right? So because if they get in and if they want to get out, it's kind of they don't have a easy and straightforward method to cash out
Hmm.
their cryptocurrency. So I
Wait,
think
but hang on though. This Unocoin didn't have a bank account then at this time, right? So how could there be any fiat balances?
no bank account was there, right? So we could not accept the money from our customers or send the money to our customers.
Right.
right? So
Got it.
whatever the balance that was already there, so that continues to be there, and that is same with every other exchange as well, not just us.
Right. So
Uh,
you had your bank account still as a company, but you just couldn't do anything with it, basically.
that's right. So the bank accounts were still getting used for paying the rent and
Right.
so for paying the utility bills and salaries to
Hmm.
take care of the every other expenses within the company, but just not the receipt from our customers and then the withdrawals from our customers.
Sure.
So yeah, so that's the kind of issue, and from everywhere I could hear, and even based upon what our lawyers comment, etc. as well, the kind of notice that they had given to the banks is unconstitutional, which means it is not as per the constitution of
Right.
India. So then we had to approach the court.
And
And
there was no regular law either. It was just a notice by the central bank taken on their own accord without any involvement of the political system or the law system or anything like that.
that's
Right.
yeah, that's right. So then it has to be challenged in the Supreme Court, which is like the highest court within India.
Did it
And the
have to
fight
go? Did it
about
have to go straight to the highest court, or were there lower courts first?
no, so what happened? So there was not like only one exchange within India, right? So there are like multiple exchanges.
Hmm.
So there are different exchanges in different states, even though everyone is serving entire India. Okay, so some exchanges try to approach the high court, which is the biggest court within the state.
Hmm.
Okay, and some exchanges try to file the case directly at the Supreme Court.
Okay, so
So
different exchanges were pursuing different strategies as well. It wasn't you didn't band together as one front, but there were different exchanges fighting their
but
own legal fight. Is
it
that right?
was kind of an association was there already, but not every exchange was a part of association. So
Right.
which made some exchanges to just take their own path. So as soon as this entire issue came to the notice of Supreme Court, then they sent out a notice to all other courts saying any matter or any cases pertaining to this particular notice should be clubbed together and to be sent to the Supreme Court. So it's only like one court is the highest court is hearing it, and all other lower courts are not hearing or entertaining uh,
Straight to
this
the
particular case.
straight to the Supreme Court.
Yeah.
And
So
this
which made all
was
the cases get
2018.
sorry.
This was all still in 2018.
Yeah, that's right. 2018, everything more or less in April and May. So within like first 2 months, so all these things happened, and all of the cases got clubbed to the Supreme Court. And then yeah, there was a very long fight with the Reserve Bank of India at the court, where so many aspects of the cryptocurrencies was discussed. So
So
our lawyer.
what did the central bank argue? What was their argument?
So their argument was that so there are money laundering activities which could happen, and people could use these for illegal drug purchases and such things, and so those are kind of and there are some scams that can happen, and there is no properly legal recourse for the trace of or the trial of funds. So those are some of the apprehensions that they had. This kind of apprehensions is more or less what the entire cryptocurrency industry knows about. So what issues can go wrong, right? So, and the hacking is possible, and people could just lose the money just because they are not safe, and there is absolutely no way to recover it. And
Mm.
so those kinds of things were actually put forward by them. So from our end, we had to go one step at a time. Again, to say we like how if some hack happens, so what methodologies exist as of today. If there is any kind of activity that people are trying to do, like buying illegal drugs, so what are the international standards or international companies which are helping to avoid such kinds of transactions happening through an exchange. And on the other side, we had to tell about how strict is our KYC norms, and how we make sure all the transactions that people are trying to do is happening through the bank account, so that the customer is always known to the business. It is not like unknown anymore.
Mhm.
So these things made it to some extent, but yeah, it's because there's like so much of paperwork is involved. where a bunch of questions will be asked by them, and then we will have to reply on the paper, and then they'll again come back with comments. So, and then finally, by the time it reaches the arguments, it took like more than a year by
Mm.
itself, just the communication and filing of the different papers. So we were anticipating this to take about some 2 or 3 quarters, but it took quite a lot than that. So after the arguments have started,
That's very expensive as well, all in all.
definitely yes. So arguing at that level really needed a lot of money. So because we had actually put together some fund to fight this at the Supreme Court as an association. So we were able to take care of it, and this also became like a prestigious project for. Give me a second.
For what?
So maybe you should cut that somehow. Yeah, it's like working from home. Um, so I was trying to say that. So after 1 year of that kind of paperwork that was happening, right? So then we were given the chance to actually argue about this in front of the lawyers, in front of the judges, right? So it was a 3-panel judge that existed, and we were getting like one date per month usually, so which again took about some 6 to 7 months of time to get it to an extent where yes, so the next hearing we should extend the dates continuously and finally dispose this off. And this also, there are like different types of matters that the Supreme Court takes. So this particular issue was regarded as a non-miscellaneous matter, so which means it can only get heard on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. That's it. So it will not be heard on Mondays, Friday, and Saturday, which means it's like every 3 days is like one week gone, right? So for every 3 days. And anytime, let's say if the Supreme Court already is busy hearing another case, then the lawyers and everyone kind of end up waiting from morning to evening, and like nothing happens, right? So that those are the kind of days, like a lot of such days existed where the case was not taken up. But finally, I think by the month of January 2020, it kind of went up to a stage where it should be heard no matter what, like continuously, and it should be disposed of. So during which we started getting dates like, okay, next Tuesday, again Wednesday, again Thursday, like that. So unless it is a government holiday or some other, really stressful, issue, we were given the priority after
Right.
about 20 months of fight. So yeah, it has to be argued at that stage. So again, the arguments did cover like a lot of things, from what is the stance of Bitcoin, and how this particular industry is seen in other countries, what kind of laws existed, and what are the kinds of different wrong things that has happened with Bitcoin, and how that has what kind of say reciprocations has happened in those countries.
Yeah.
So it could
So
be
really,
hacks,
really a
everything. Yeah,
point for point
yeah,
rebuttal on all of the different points
that's
that the
right.
central bank was bringing.
Yeah, so all of them had to be covered. So right now, so finally in March 4th of 2020, the verdict came out from the Supreme Court saying that yeah, it was unconstitutional, and the bank should allow the accounts to be opened for the cryptocurrency exchanges, and it is fine, right? So the banks, that's the discretion of the banks, they can make the accounts and the transaction to get through their platform, right? So that's pretty much where we are. And the good thing
Did you
now is
expect that?
that because these are,
Did
sorry.
you expect that? Did you expect to win?
Yeah, like 90% was the kind of chances. It used to be initially comparatively less, but over the arguments and by at least the last quarter, right? So last quarter of 2019, we kind of understood that because it just again matters what kind of questions they're asking and how we are replying. So we can see the case tilting in one direction.
Hmm. And it was
So,
only the
so that
second time in history that the High Court, the Supreme Court, overturned the decision by the central bank, right?
that's right.
Do you know what the first time was? Do you know what the only other time was?
I did not do no, I did not do the research. But again, so those are all again different kind of startup ideas and such things, right? So even today, there are so many unregulated industries or unregulated businesses that happen in India, not because they don't want to get regulated, but there is no regulator, right? So we have issues with cab sharing. It could be like two-wheeler ride sharing, or it could be the delivery of the products like Amazon equivalents here, right? So all those things, there are like quite because India is one of the very highly regulated countries, so rules exist for everything. And whenever a new business or a new model turns up, it's in all likelihood it is not fitting a particular definition, which keeps it kind of hanging for an extended period of time. So even for peer-to-peer lending, we got the regulation only like few years ago, right? So
Do
after
you,
it was kind of required for 10 years.
do you think, did you get any impression that the judges were interested in Bitcoin?
Definitely, yeah. So the judges actually were so interested in such a way that they took one step at a time, even with their limited technical knowledge. This took one step at a time to understand various aspects of Bitcoin. So it started with what is Bitcoin and how it gets generated, right? So all of that, again, it's not like me or someone else from the industry can go and answer. It has to be answered by the lawyers, right? So the lawyer himself should be completely passionate enough and understand the technology behind this so that he can explain it to the Supreme Court judges. So that these things have taken quite a significant amount of time. So and then there were arguments about, see, the banks will kind of process the transactions of fiat currency irrespective of irrespective of knowing, uh, without knowing why the transaction is happening. Not every transaction happens to the bank account. The bank will know why the transaction is happening. So it's kind of let's say if I am giving one Bitcoin to my friend and he's sending the money to me through the bank account, the bank will never know that on the other side I gave a Bitcoin to him. And the banks kind of end up processing the transaction unknowingly, right? So these are all the different arguments that has come up there. And one strong thing I would say here is that whatever were the kind of points that the Reserve Bank of India is trying to bring up, saying how things can go wrong, so according to the exchanges and whatever rules they were trying to put in, so all of those things won't apply. But the victim still became the exchanges, right? So money laundering, it is not directly possible through exchanges,
Hmm.
right? And any such thing, right? So it's like no direct issue, but the way they want to stop it is through uh, not providing the banking access to exchanges. So
Right.
it was kind of very exciting arguments at the court. For at the end it was like very impressive, I would say, of our lawyers as well, who have put together the entire arguments to make this happen.
Yeah, absolutely. It seems like a massive achievement. Did any
Mhm.
new rules come out of the ruling? Like, are the KYC rules stricter now or anything like that?
No, so I think we already have enough strict, and I don't think how it can be more strict unless we do physical verifications of the humans, which is, at least for time being, is unviable economically, right? So so it's kind of quite strict already. Every exchange is making sure the money coming in and money going out is always through the bank accounts where the KYC is already verified once. And there's another step again at the exchange. So just making sure that the, these exchanges know about their own customers, right? So there is nothing like new thing that has come up. But if you get to see the arguments and the judgment copy, which is like 180-page book, so that's the kind of analysis that the court has done, which includes obviously about the arguments as well, and what is the comments from the judges and such things. And finally, the verdict says, yeah, it was unconstitutional, and bank should allow the bank accounts for exchanges and the customers.
Yeah. So now there's 1 billion people in India, something like that.
Yeah, close to about 1.4 billion already.
Oh,
So that is like,
1.4 billion.
yeah, it's about 17-18% of the population in the
Right.
world.
So 1.4 billion more people that can try to get their hands on 21 million Bitcoin.
That's right. So now they also have an access to or a method to actually buy Bitcoin. That's correct.
So you've been opened again for business since 2 months or something like this?
Yeah, it's been more than a month and a half already. So we got the verdict on March 4th, and we got our bank accounts operated with, including customer funds coming in and going out by March 5th. So it took about 24 hours to set all those things up, and it's kind of back to normal. And
is it going well so far? Do you see a new influx of users, people?
yeah, so we are seeing about 500 to 800 new users every day joining our platform. So it's quite been very, very successful so far. It's having a very good traction so far.
Right. Well, very exciting. Congrats on the victory, of course. Really good news for everyone, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks for your time,
Thank you.
Sathvik. Is there anything else we should discuss? Is there anything you think I should have asked, which I didn't?
I think we covered. So, and unless you want to know about like what made me start Unocoin, and like what was the situation before, like how it used to look like, and how people were interested but no access to the Bitcoin. So, I mean, those things as well we can cover
Hey, why
if that
not?
is.
We've got another 5 minutes. Tell me about yourself. Tell me why you got into Bitcoin.
Sure. So I actually did my MBA from University of Melbourne in 2008. So just after completing my MBA, it was kind of precision. So at that time, I had a hobby of providing scripting services in a virtual world called Second Life. Okay, so it is like people log in and they see themselves as an avatar. They can go around any other avatar they meet is like there's a real person behind it, right? And people do various things like building, say, scripting, texturing, and landscaping, and such things. So what I used to do was, if someone is, let's say, trying to build a home, I was creating a automation script and system for them. So it's
Right.
kind of objects will come to life using scripts. It's very similar to Flash animations. You have to write the scripts to make things work.
Mhm.
Okay, so yeah, I did that for about 4 years. And the way we earn money in Second Life is through a closed loop currency among these Second Life users called Linden dollars. And once you get Linden dollars, you get that converted to American dollars. So about 250 Linden dollars is $1 American. So once you have the Linden dollars converted to American dollars, because I live in India, right? So the only option that I had to get the money to India was through PayPal, right? So who used to charge about 3.9% transaction fees, and they used to convert the remaining American dollars into the Indian rupees. So they used to charge another 3% as a conversion fees. So I used to lose about 7% of the money month on month, and that happened for about 4 years, which is like significant amount of money. And I could very clearly see all that is happening is the numbers getting say transferred, or information getting transferred from one place to one place, and the money is getting siphoned away, right? So it is like really insane. So that made me think about what other alternative methodologies exist to receive the money or send the money from one country to one country. That made me kind of stumble upon Bitcoin as one of the options. So then I was looking at what exactly is happening in Bitcoin space in India. Got to know about a meetup in Bangalore that was happening in the same weekend. So when I went there, that's where I met my other co-founders, Sunny and Abhinand and Harish.
Mhm.
So that meetup in the 2013, if you see, is also in a year when the price of Bitcoin went up from about $16 to $1,050. So, and like how the price of Bitcoin increased in that particular year, similarly, the more and more people were coming to that weekly meetup. And in one of the meetups, we had as much as 150 people. It's like a mini conference by itself, right? So while all of us could discuss great things about Bitcoin, there was no place for people to get Bitcoin, right? So everyone was listening. Oh my God, this is so cool, but nowhere to get it. And the price of Bitcoin, so while I'm talking about, is probably about $50-$60, right? So that's a kind of in April, May 2013, right? So people wanted it, but there was no opportunity, and then we were comparing it to the countries like United States, which had Coinbase, and then European countries had Bitstamp, and Japan had Mt. Gox. So, but for India, there was no such opportunity. So, what it meant was, at the end, people started bringing some money in their pocket and duffel bags, and hoping someone else who will come for the meetup will have some Bitcoin to spare and they can exchange. And that was definitely not a good way the transaction should be happening. So we took it as a business opportunity and created Unocoin. So initially we started Unocoin by just providing buy and sell. And then we introduced merchant gateway for online merchants, then POS application to be installed on the mobile phone for the brick and mortar physical stores merchants to accept Bitcoin as a mode of payment. Then we introduced something called systematic buying plan, which will help people to cost average the Bitcoin over a period of time at a fixed frequency, like weekly, monthly, or daily. So then by 2017, we felt it is kind of Indian market is matured enough to handle something like an exchange. And we also did launch an exchange with about 6 other coins and about 20 different tokens. So yeah, that's pretty much how we have come about. So we have raised about 2 rounds of funding. So our first round of funding was in 2014 from Bally Silbert's Digital Currency Group, and the second one was led by Bloom Ventures in India, so which is one of the very well-known VCs here. And we were incubated in Boost, which is again Adam Draper and Tim Draper's Bitcoin and blockchain only company then,
Yeah.
blockchain only incubator then. So like that, we continue to have more and more feathers, I think. And now we are again, 2018, we got an opportunity to fight and get this crypto freedom back for India, I think. So now we are again back on track and going forward. So crypto industry in India is one of the very happy industries where they're happy even in the pandemic than how people used to be. I mean, how the industry used to be before, because at least now we see the transactions happening and the revenues being generated as compared to how everyone was dull and the entire industry was kind of nothing much is happening. Like everyone is like waiting, watching something will happen, right? So there's a kind of time we spent for about 22 months while fighting in the Supreme Court. So that makes this particular time more exciting. So if we could survive for 22 months, then this 2 months is like nothing.
Yeah, the timing might be perfect with the halving coming up. What do you expect? Are we gonna see a pump?
I think the halving, that effect is already included in the price. So whatever,
You think it's priced in?
yeah, it's priced in, because it's again like in the equity, right? So whenever there is a dividend declaration happens, that is when the actual price happens, like change happens, not when the dividend gets distributed, because it's a like known fact. And here as well, the pricing of Bitcoin, I mean the halving of Bitcoin is like a known fact.
Yeah.
And again, we are not talking about the Bitcoin that is already with the people, right? So that is like no change is happening. It's only the newly generated Bitcoin is getting or kind of reducing. So whatever is the change is happening for is for like the next 10% of the money. That's it. For 90% of the money, which is 90% of the Bitcoin is already there with customers, I mean people, right? So that will have comparatively less effect is what I think. So whatever is the normal growth curve, it would continue. There'll definitely be like hiccups, pump and dump, such things happening till the Bitcoin goes to maybe some few hundreds of thousands of dollars, I think. So because it is like less money, people can less market cap, people can manipulate. Like so, the whales can manipulate, deep pockets can manipulate. So that eventually I think will subside and it will become like oil or gold. So where one investor cannot really manipulate no matter what. It will be like that humongous. I hope we see that kind of day soon.
Sure. Yeah, I tend to think the price is priced in. The halving is priced in. However, all of the economic craziness we're seeing in the world and people getting used to an asset like Bitcoin existing and not going away, like all of that stuff is probably not priced in sufficiently. So we might still see crazy times in the years ahead.
yeah, that's what is exciting. So every day there is a reason to be excited. I think in this crypto industry, it's like there is no boring days. So
All right, that's a good note to end on.
yeah,
Sathvik, I thought this was very interesting. Thanks for being on.
thank you.
Stay safe. Take care. Good luck with Unocoin.
Yeah, thank you. Have fun. Stay
Cheers.
safe. Bye.